Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. It is great to be with you on Monday 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is the time we hang out every week. This week we have a special guest, but I've done the show as a pre-record, which is kind of cool because it means that I get to hang out with you guys up and down here in the live chat today, because I've pre-recorded my interview with Erick from Mask Music Tutorials, and so he's a YouTuber. He'll tell you more about himself in a moment as we get started. Look, if you're hanging out in the live chat today, please make sure you let us know where you're from, what the weather is like in your part of the world. I've got so many people who hang out in the live show from the Northern Hemisphere, so many of you, it's still night time, you've just coming to the end of your weekend, and I'm always quite humbled by how many of you sort of finish your weekend joining us here in the live chat. Of course, if you're watching this as a replay, you too are welcome, and if you've never joined a live chat here, a live show, or watched one of them in a replay here at Voice Essentials, welcome. It's so good to have you. We are a community of like-minded people who just love to hang out and talk about singing. Contemporary vocals specifically. I'm Dr. Dan. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm a contemporary voice, singing voice specialist. And I lead this merry group of individuals, and we're very passionate about voice. Here at Voice Essentials, we believe it is the birthright of every human being to sing, and by every human being, I do mean you. So let's get into today's show. Actually, before we do, I do want to just do one little thing. I'm trying something different, and I'm not pointing to the wrong place. For those of you who watch the show regularly, I always point to the wrong point on the screen. But up in this corner, you should see a white dot with an I in it. If you click on that white dot, I am running a poll. For those of you who have been hanging out with us long enough to know, you will know that as scrolling along this bottom here is the voiceessentials.com.au URL, which takes you to my online course. It's been out in the wild now for a few months, and so I'm just wanting to gauge a poll on what is keeping you from joining the course if you haven't already. Now, many of my friends in the live chat will have already participated, and there is a fifth answer you can give to say, hey, I'm already enrolled. But I'm interested, is it what's keeping you from enrolling? Is it price? Is it the 12-month access that causes you to finish and to complete the course? I don't want you to just buy the course. I want you to complete the course. So there is a time restriction on it. Is it that? And I've had a little bit of feedback suggesting that people would purchase it if it was unlimited. And so I'm interested to know if that's you. Are you just purely not interested in doing an online course? Is that your reason for not joining? Or do you just simply have other things going on in life at the moment and you feel like you can't jump in? I'm really keen to know what's holding people back from joining the course. Of course, I've been amazed at the amount of people that are enrolled and are participating. In fact, I had the most fabulous piece of feedback from Joy in our Facebook group. If you want to join our Facebook group, there's certainly no charge for that. You can jump onto Facebook and just search Voice Essentials Community Group and ask to participate and be accepted into the group. And we accept all comers. And so in that group, Joy gave the most wonderful, unsolicited feedback about what she's getting out of the course. Joy, if you are watching this show, thank you. I was so humbled to know that you are getting as much as you declared that you are out of the course. So anyway, have a look at the poll. I've never run a poll on one of these live hangouts before, so I'll be interested to see what your feedback is. But without further ado, I do want to get us into today's show and introduce you to Erick. We're talking about recording better vocals for uploading to the Facebook group, to YouTube. I've had a lot of questions from people asking about this topic, and so I'm hoping that today's live hangout pre-record, albeit pre-record, can answer some of the questions for you. And I am going to be in the live chat. So, no, I got it wrong. Over here, I'm going to be in there in a moment, and I'll be answering some questions as we go along. And hang around until the end of the show, because I'll come back on and we'll finish up and we'll talk about what's coming up next in Voice Essentials. I really do hope you enjoy this interview with Erick.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hey Erick, how you doing?
Hey Dan, I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Actually, I'm on the end of a cold. I've been actually at the time of our recording. Of course, we're doing this as a pre-recorded live show. I have been in bed with the flu for the last week, so I'm only just getting back on top of things. We've here in Australia we've been hit with this really big start to the flu season. Of course, you're in Australia. Well, have you had any flu issues down your way?
No, but yeah, you're not the only one. There's a few people where I work who have also been affected, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, because we're both Aussies, but we're a little bit of a distance away from each other. Whereabouts are you from, and what do you do with yourself typically?
Yeah, it feels like everyone in Australia is, but I'm from New South Wales, so just in a town outside of the capital city, Canberra, and I've been producing music using FL Studio for about 10 years now, and outside of that, I'm doing technical security work for a living.
Okay, so obviously we probably should disclose that you and I, besides a brief 10-minute discussion we've just had before we started recording today, we don't know each other. In fact, you emailed me about 2 weeks ago, was it, I think?
Yeah,
saying, hey, I'm a fellow YouTube creator. I do, music tutorials or recording, like home recording tutorials on YouTube. Do you want to collaborate? And you know what? A part of the reason why I said yes is because I remember, because you've got about 18,000 subscribers, and I remember reaching out to 2 or 3 larger channels when I was a channel your size, and asking, would someone collaborate with me? And I thought would be a good match, and actually only one of them came back with a yes. So I knew that, it was a positive thing to do, and I wanted to sort of pay forward a bit. So that's why I said yes, but also because I think that the topic of what we're going to talk about today is a really positive one for my audience, and hopefully, if you direct some people from your side of the tracks to the discussion as well, I think it'll be a positive thing. We're going to talk about home recording, and I'm looking forward to talking about this because I get a lot of questions on my channel about what is the best way to go about recording my voice, and these are people that generally don't have a lot of technical expertise or experience. So I really saw it as an opportunity when you made the approach for us to have a good chat about this, and get someone who's sort of got a channel about it. And incidentally, everyone, if you're watching this, I've left a link in the description section below of this video to Erick's channel, Mask Music Tutorials. Actually, before we get going, what's with the mask? Do you want to give us some insights there?
Yeah, I can't really give you one answer. It's kind of meant a few things. It's something I came up with quite a number of years ago now, but I don't actually use it as my artist name. It's kind of become what it's known for are my tutorials. So it's just stayed as that now, but yeah.
And of course, people who jump across to see your channel are going to see you wearing a mask. Like, it's obviously just like exactly everyone sees me wearing a hat. It's obviously become your thing.
Yeah, it stands out a bit, and kind of people know when they're looking at the thumbnails. Oh yeah, that's that guy who wears a weird mask. So
Okay, right. And
yeah,
no mask today though.
yeah, I think I might have outgrown it by now. Unfortunately.
Okay, fair enough. So listen, talk us through, if someone reaches out to you and says, hey, look, I wanna up my game a bit. I've been recording my voice and my singing to my smartphone. I want to up my game a bit. Where do I start? What do we need to do?
Yeah, right. The first thing is you kind of got to figure out what your budget's going to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your budget right now. What I mean by that is you can start with something kind of beginner level or entry level, and then if you're liking it and you want to kind of move up, so to speak, you can move on to better models, getting more gear, really building a studio. But I think the first thing would obviously be a good microphone. So what I'm using here that you'll probably see in the shot is it's made by Rode. So I've got a package which comes with the NT1 microphone, as well as this shock mount, and I've also got a swivel. So it's all kind of one package.
Okay. Obviously, a Rode, just so everyone knows, Rode is not sponsoring us today, but no. they might get a bit of a shout out from us both. I'm wearing a Rode lapel today, and I've got Rode equipment in my. It's a good Australian company. It's actually a bit of a success story in Australia, and a lot of online people use a lot of their gear. So yeah, sorry. Anyway, we just need to let everyone know that Rode is not sponsoring today's hangout.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, that's right. Rode, if you want to, knock yourselves out. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So from there, I mean, that would be the first thing. Obviously, if you're recording your voice, you need something to record it into. So if you see me looking down, it's because I've compiled a bit of a list here, just so I get every point and don't forget anything.
What can I just ask you? Why is the mic? Why for you is the mic the first go-to? What is it about the microphone that's so important?
Well, you want good quality. So you were mentioning before, we had a bit of a discussion before we started this stream, but you were saying that a few of your viewers actually use things like an iPhone, a recording app in there. And there's a huge difference between quality of what you're going to get in, a more professional standard microphone like this as to what you get in your iPhone. So for me, you want a quality take when you're recording. That's why I think it's one of the most important things.
Yeah, I've always sort of thought about it from the point of view that the very first thing that your voice passes through before it goes into any other digital or electronic equipment is the mic. So if the mic is not, if it's of a certain level, then it can only reproduce that certain level. And yeah, how much, for example, does an NT1 cost in Australian dollars?
Yeah, so I had a look at that, and I mean, if you go to the Rode website, it's going to cost a bit more. So I got mine off eBay. That's why I checked the prices there. Okay. Although I think I got mine about 5-6 years ago now, but it's about $300 for the set. But you do get what you'll see here, the pop filter as well.
Yeah.
And the shock mount, and I'll go in on that a little bit real quick, I guess. But the pop filter is so you got plosives, right? So if I use P's or T's, you'll hear the p and t.
Yeah.
Now what this does is kind of reduces that a bit.
Yeah. And
then same thing with the shock mount. Say you're getting up close and you accidentally nudge it, that's meant to kind of reduce the impact of that. So you get all those things together in this bundle, and I think it's a great kind of place to start if you want to take your recording a bit more seriously.
Yeah. So would you say that that's a pretty reasonable sort of starting price, the $300 mark?
I think so. There's definitely a lot more expensive stuff out there that would most likely be better quality, but there's also a lot of mics I've used in the past that might be a little bit less expensive, but you're not getting the same quality. So I think depends. You know, if you want to start taking it a bit more seriously and actually get some of your stuff out there, so to speak, I think that's a pretty reasonable price range to be looking at.
Yeah, okay. So we've got ourselves a mic. Where would we go next?
So, assuming everyone has a laptop or a computer to work on, you kind of need a way to connect the two. So that's where an audio interface comes in. And I'll see if I might not be able to, sorry, I've just got it lying here, but it's all hooked up.
Yeah.
But what I use is it's by Focusrite. It's called the Scarlett 2i2. And once again, they're not sponsoring this or anything like that. It's just what I'm using.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically,
funnily enough, I also have the Scarlett.
So do many people. Yeah.
It's a great little interface. Great little preamps in it, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really what I like about it is it's so easy to set up as well. So you've got your XLR cable that comes with the Rode beginner like startup package. It just goes in the front, and then you've got a USB coming out the back, but you just plug right into your computer. So it couldn't be any easier, really.
And nothing. Certainly, you know, the whole adage of plug and play is not always accurate, but actually the Focusrite is actually very plug and play. You plug it in and computer will pick it up and away you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
So
what is that doing? For those not in the know, Eric, what is the interface doing?
Basically, it's just a way for you to get your voice converted into I guess like a digital wave in your digital audio workstation. So I'll get to that as well, but I use FL Studio. That's what I do all of my tutorials on. I'm not sure, what do you use for your recordings?
Well, do you know what? I don't do a lot of recording vocally. Certainly my Focusrite is set up as my studio space. So students can, in studio students, we record every lesson for them as an MP3. And I'm actually using Wavelab, Steinberg's Wavelab, a really old version of it now. And so I don't actually do recording per se, which is why I think it's so great that we've got someone like yourself on the show. Because I think the next step is where I think a lot of people will be really interested to sort of know, okay, I've got my mic, I've got my module, say for example they purchase Focusrite, which is again not sponsoring the show. There are no sponsors for today's show. We'll just put an underline under all of that. So we then record into the computer, but of course you can't just record into the computer, which is where you're going next, right?
Yeah, I can move on to that. And I guess a simple way to kind of sum it up is it's kind of like an external sound card. So I've also got my headphones going into it. It's basically everything sound related going into your computer and coming out. But yeah, did you want me to continue with perhaps a bit more equipment that I might suggest?
Yeah,
or do you
just
want me to
very
move
briefly.
on?
No, let's just do a little bit more equipment, and then we might just briefly talk about FL Studio, because I don't know anything about FL, and I'll be really interested to hear, because most of my mates are using Logic and programs like that, so I'll be really keen to hear your thoughts. And yeah,
too easy. Well, the next thing, obviously, if you're recording good audio through a good microphone like this, you want something quality to hear it from as well. So either, headphones like this, studio monitor headphones, or you want speakers of a similar quality. And then, assuming everyone has a laptop or computer, I might skip that one. But the last thing I do want to mention is acoustic treatment. Now, I can just turn a bit, and you should see there, I've got some foam that kind of looks like egg cartons on the wall. Okay. Now, basically, what that does is you've always got a kind of ambience or a sound for a given space. You probably notice that if you go in your closet and talk, compared to being in a cathedral. It's going to be two very different kind of reverberations or reflections.
Yeah.
So with the acoustic treatment, you don't want to trick your ears by having your sound kind of bouncing around the room. So what it does is partly absorbs and partly deflects some of that sound. So you're getting as much of the raw take going to your ears without anything interrupting that or confusing it. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. And in fact, I think you can, I think people can be surprised to learn what you can use to create this sound treatment. In fact, my album, which I recorded back in 2007, was recorded by an ARIA award-winning producer, and we recorded it in his house, and he surrounded me in mattresses, bedroom mattresses. I was literally in this little hut of old mattresses, and so there was definitely nothing fancy about the recording, but out of that album I got two top 30s. So you don't have to get too carried away, do you? To
Absolutely,
actually get a great
there's
result.
a lot of kind of do-it-yourself remedies out there. Another one is egg cartons. I've heard that works wonders too.
It works wonders. That the challenge with egg cartons is the cockroaches. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so that's basically it. As far as kind of treating your room, I like to have things that directly impact my ears. So I've got one either side of my ears where I sit.
Yeah.
I've got one behind where I work, and then a few panels in the ceiling as well.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. In the
But yeah,
up in the ceiling.
Yeah, so I do the clap test is what I call it, and if you hear kind of ringing, a lot of ringing coming back, you need to kind of patch that space up. And I found that if you leave the ceiling bare, you actually get quite a lot of reflections. Yeah,
because the sound's actually going to get up into that ceiling cavity and bounce around, isn't it?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so let's jump back to you've got your setup. Maybe you've taken the mattress off your bed. You're singing into the mattress, into your mic. Oh, just briefly on the mic. Do you want to just explain to us the difference between, here in my studio, I've mostly got performance mics. Of course, there's a difference, isn't there, between a performance mic and a recording mic? Do you want to briefly talk us through that?
I think that might be your domain, actually. I'm not too sure about that myself. I've just done a bit of, Google research when I was looking for a good mic, and this one got a lot of good reviews. So I couldn't give you a very qualified answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, now that I brought it up, essentially the difference between the two is essentially one is built for recording. And so they typically will be a condenser mic, so they'll be very live, and they're actually going to be very, very receptive to sound. So they're going to take in the full spectrum of sound that your voice is producing. Whereas a performance mic will typically be far more shaped. So, for example, we have different ranges of mics. We've got dynamic mics, condenser mics. That's how the capsule is charged. And then we've also got the polar pattern of those capsules. So we've got cardioid, supercardioid. A mic like my lapel is omnidirectional, so it's picking up everything everywhere. So it really just depends on it's horses for courses. Mics are not mics are not mics, I guess, is what we're trying to help people come away with. Is you've really got to be able to find a mic specific to the task that you're using for. So, for example, your microphone on your phone is specifically designed for speech. They're getting better because obviously people are using them for video, and so they're getting a little bit more broader in their capacity to pick up, landscape and what have you. But anywho, back to you, Erick. Let's talk about we've got our setup. We're singing. We're blah blah. We're recording. What do we need on our computer to capture all this?
Yep. So that's where a digital audio workstation comes in, and You'll probably have seen it abbreviated to DAW or DAW. As I was mentioning before, I use FL Studio. I know. Do you use Mac or Windows yourself?
No, I'm a Windows boy, I must say. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I know a lot of people who use Macs use. I think it's free or it's very cheap, but I know GarageBand's very popular. It does a very similar thing.
Yeah, right.
But basically, I guess you need somewhere to post-process it once you've recorded the actual signal in. So that could be removing any noise that was in it, editing takes. If you wanted to take it another step, then, adding things like drum loops and piano chords, things of that nature. So you're building around your vocals.
And why do we, what are the, obviously, I think one of the challenges, certainly, hey, look, I don't use DAW products, so I know that, one of the scary things can be is that these things look like you need at least an undergrad to, a degree to run them. And so channels like yours are fantastic because they sort of help to give people, I guess, that sort of initial sort of understanding. In fact, I was on your channel earlier today and I saw you've got, I think, a 30-minute introduction to FL Studio. So everyone, I'd encourage you, if you're interested, you should go and check that out on Erick's channel. But why are we using that? Why not just, grab the vocal and grab the, whether it be a backing track or a guitar or whatever, why not just put them together and bang, you've got your recording? What are the big benefits?
Yeah, I suppose you could do that. Just out of curiosity, what would you be doing that on instead? If you're like, how would you do it, for example?
Oh, I would, if I were going to record my voice in the manner that we're talking about, I would do exactly what you're talking about. I just don't tend to do that. When it comes to recording for example, when I record students in the lesson, we're not recording it in the same manner that you're recording. I'm just doing a room capture, and I actually run it through a little program. Trying to find it here. I've got a little post-processing app called the Levelator, which kind of compresses and limits and does three normalizes. It's doing 3 little actions, but that's really just for the tasks that I have set up for the studio. But as far as if I were to record my voice to do, I've got a number of mates. I've got one particular one who I use to do a lot of this work and who I would send my students to if they wanted to pay some dollars to
Sorry, I've just lost your audio there, Dan.
I thought at the very beginning of our session, I thought, oh, there's 2 bars left on that. We should be fine. You'd think after all this time of me doing these live hangouts, I would know better. And I do, and I still make that mistake. Okay, so from a recording point of view, talk us through why do you use FL Studio? What do you like about it?
I guess it really, based on what you've just said, comes down to how much of it you want to take control of yourself. So, like you said, you can just get the raw recording and send it off to someone else who can do all that. If that's what you wish to do, that's where you wish to take it. But, I mean, if you want to get a bit more hands-on, I suppose, you kind of need at least a very basic DAW to work in. So, for example, you can do all that stuff within FL Studio's editor as well, where you can limit it, normalize it, all kinds of things to get the best out of your raw recording.
Yeah.
There's other effects such as artificial delay and reverberation, and you'll hear that a lot in pop tracks, kind of echo effects, I guess is the best way to sum it up for those who don't really know what those effects are.
Yeah.
But it's really limitless what you can do to your recording and how you can enhance it, even with just basic processing.
Yeah. So what would be the top things that you would add to a raw vocal? What would be the top? Can we limit it to 3 things without?
Yep. One thing that I do when I'm recording my YouTube tutorials, for example, as I said, there's always a bit of noise in every space. So what you can do is select a snippet of that noise when, between sentences where you perceive it as silence, and you can actually deduct that from the rest of the audio so they cancel each other out, leaving you with no actual room noise. So that's one very important thing to do.
And that room noise would be sort of if we were to amplify it, it would kind of be a.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely want to get rid of that and just have clear vocals. And then, like you said, I mean, everything like limiting and normalizing, it has to do with getting the most in terms of amplitude or volume. So that's where I'd go next. Trying to basically, it has to do with what's called dynamic range, and I'll just try and simplify it really quickly. But if you've got loud parts, they might be up here in a wave, and you've got quiet parts that might be down here. When you're compressing or limiting, what you're in essence doing is kind of bringing them down to a similar level so that you can boost the volume up without it distorting.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I'd also do when working with vocals. And then the third thing would be adding effects like reverberation and delay as well, just to give it those finishing touches.
Yeah. Are there, if we were to back away, are there programs, apps that do this on your phone?
There probably are. I mean, there's apps for pretty much everything. I actually saw a Spirit Level app the other day, which blew my mind. But as to the quality of them, I can't tell you because I haven't actually checked them out myself. I'm just a bit skeptical. I'm not sure you get the most out of them.
So what would you say to a person who's thinking, yeah, I want to up my game. I've got, $1,000 to spend, because I think it probably would be around about $1,000 you'd need to invest, wouldn't it, if you wanted to really...
Can be quite pricey, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a lot more expensive than $1,000. Yeah. But let's just say we've got $1,000 to spend and get ourselves started. What is the learn? Is there? Do you think there's a steep learning curve in getting into?
Absolutely, and once again, it depends how deep you want to kind of dive into it. You can, I think, with a bit of persistence, learn some very basic kind of post-processing and basic production skills within a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel like I was, in terms of being a producer, really making kind of high quality stuff until about the 6-7 year mark. So yeah, there's a lot of different levels. But I mean, for someone who just wants to do it so they can start getting their stuff out there, I think a few months, if you really, knuckle down and try and learn it, I think that's plenty.
Yeah. It's such a daunting space because there is a learning curve, but I know there are people in my community who, they've asked the question and they're keen to sort of dive in, and I think, Erick, your YouTube channel would be certainly a place that people could start, and I see that you answer questions on your site as well. So, what would be, and we probably should finish up in a second. Where would you direct people? What other places would you direct people to explore and engage with if they're wanting to get into this process of recording their own vocals and upping the game a bit?
It depends how you learn. I'm a very visual learner, so I mean, there's plenty of content on YouTube, so that's a good place to start for people like me.
Yeah.
There is one channel that I will give a shout out to actually that specifically has to do with recording, and it's called the Recording Revolution. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I am familiar with the Recording Revolution, yeah.
Yeah, he's made a lot of really good kind of content that actually helped me when I was starting to build my own studio as well. So that's one place. But things like blogs as well. I mean, the internet, I guess, is to sum it up, because there's just so much content out there that anyone can kind of get into it and, you know, develop an understanding quite quickly these days.
What about listening? You know, what would you be encouraging people to listen to in regards to learning to record their vocals?
In terms of what? Sorry, how do you mean?
Well, in terms of what are they listening for? What are they? Music is an art of listening, isn't it? As much as it is an art of doing. What are you typically encouraging people to do in regards to developing their ears?
Yep. Well, specific to recording your vocals or audio, there are so many tips that I've kind of picked up over the years, and you'll know better than anyone that a lot of different singers and vocal coaches have different opinions on things. But simple things like how your microphone picks up audio. One thing that I liked was there was someone on YouTube, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying, don't face the microphone straight on. It's better to kind of hit it at an angle and talk or sing past it. And that's once again to kind of avoid those plosives.
Yeah.
And then things like, you know, if I'm sitting here, say 15, 20 centimeters away from it, compared to if I'm up here or if I'm back here, all of those things make a huge difference as well. So I guess kind of listening to what you've recorded and get a feel for what kind of suits your needs the most. That's one thing that I could say.
And I guess experimenting. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
You know, the wonderful thing, I do a little bit of, I haven't done a lot recently, but I do enjoy amateur photography. And I'm so glad I exist in an era where I can take as many shots as I like on my digital camera, and I'm not churning through film. You know, the era of film must have been a very frustrating process to develop your skills in, because you know, every shot was actually costing you money.
Yeah.
Now you can, you know, just and just find what you think is the best shot. I guess the same with recording. We're no longer recording to tape, we're recording to hard drives, and so you can really experiment a lot, and it's not costing a lot of money in the process.
Exactly, yeah. Like even say 15 years ago, you kind of needed to know people to have a shot at recording, or else you needed to be a millionaire. Now you've got 12-year-olds doing it in their bedrooms, and it doesn't really need to cost you that much at all. So times have definitely changed.
Yeah, I remember when Kenny G first released his now much maligned album of sax back in the late 90s or mid 90s, and the big thing about that album was that he'd recorded it in his basement, and that was a big deal back then. It was sort of like, what, you know, because we're back in the 80s and into the 90s. Recording was done in multi-million-dollar suites and studios, and now you're quite right. You know, my son, who is 14, plays around with his tablet and produces different things. So there's so much that can happen just in the comfort of your own bedroom, but it still comes down to being able to hear the right things, being able to set up your equipment correctly, as you've talked us through earlier, which has been great, and investing time, and everyone, you do have to invest some time, and you do have to invest some money if you are going to want to up your game in regards to the recording of your vocals and moving them beyond the smartphone environment, which there is nothing wrong with doing. Let's face it, smartphones aren't cheap either. So there's nothing wrong with, you know, if that's where you know, your recording level is at, that's completely fine. But if you are wanting to step it up, you do have to spend the time and the money. Erick, I've enjoyed today's conversation. Thanks for coming on to the show. Is there anything just to finish up that you wanted to make a note of, or?
Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what you're saying about one of the biggest beauties of setting up your own home studio is exactly what you said, that you've got the time to just come in at your own leisure and try things out and experiment. And if it doesn't work, you've got to figure out another way, maybe jump onto places like my own channel or the Recording Revolution and get tips. But that's what's so different today compared to, like I said, 15 years ago, is that it's so accessible now. So it's quite exciting. It's a really exciting process building up your own studio.
Yeah, and some people do find that, you know, I've met many singers over the years who find themselves getting into recording and actually love the process of production. And you can discover a whole new field of creative enjoyment by exploring it. So, look, if you're thinking of doing it, I know Erick would encourage you, I encourage you, jump in, get your fingers dirty, and you know, enjoy the process. There's nothing to lose, maybe a few dollars, but certainly, you know, it'll be time well spent. You'll enjoy the process, and even if you don't get into it and it's not really your deal, you get to understand the process so that should you find yourself in a studio with a producer and an engineer, you understand the workflow, you understand what's going on, and it can really help you engage in the recording process in a far more proactive way. So yeah, I'd really encourage you to do that. Erick, thank you for today. I've really enjoyed our live hangout together. I'm really glad you took the time to make contact, and because I really am certain that there's going to be a lot of people in my community who are going to benefit from our talk today. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Dan.
Yeah, always good to have a fellow Aussie on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed today's pre-recorded live show. I caught Karen out there for a moment. Karen, you thought we were doing it live. It's not live. I'm not good enough, Karen, to be typing in the live chat and doing the live show. But look, glad you enjoyed today's live hangout. Hey, if you're interested, which I know you are, we've got so many great guests coming up in the next few weeks and months. In a couple of weeks, I've got a music theatre specialist from New York joining us. His name is David Sisko. He's been to Australia recently, and in fact is actually coming again very soon down to Canberra, the capital of Australia. That's right, Sydney is not the capital of Australia. Canberra is the capital, and a group called ANATS, the Australian National Association for Teachers of Singing, is getting him in. Anyway, so he's going to come on to the show. We're going to talk about music theatre, vocals, and even if music theatre is not your thing, I really want to encourage you in a couple of weeks to join us for David's live hangout, because I think there's going to be a lot of really cool information there. Then a few weeks later, probably in the mid-July, we've got special guests, Gillian Kays and Dr. Gillian Kays and Jeremy Fisher, who hail from the UK. This couple are internationally regarded vocal pedagogues, and we're going to have some great discussion with them. And I quote Gillian like heaps on this channel in my pre-recorded videos and on the live show here. So it'd be great to have them come along. Then in August, we've got Marcy Daniels Rosenberg, who is you might recall from last year, we had a great person join us. Now that I go to say her name, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, co-authored The Vocal Athlete. Marcy Daniels Rosenberg is the other author who's coming onto the show, and she's a singing voice specialist. She's going to join us in August. And then this one I seriously cannot wait for. in September, I have got a super special guest. Many of you outside of Australia will not have heard of this individual. Her name is Jan van der Stoel, and she is, well, she's a comic, but she presents herself online and in comedy shows as essentially the world's best singing teacher. She is an absolute scream. So we are going to have her on, not the actor, Queenie, who is a friend who I've done work with in the past, but her what do we call it when a person's, her character, Jan van der Stoel, in September. I will continue to remind you of that show because, look, we may not learn anything about voice in that show, but we are going to have an absolute hoot. It will be eye-watering funny, I promise. So that's what's coming up. Hey, don't forget, up here, up there, don't forget, if you haven't already filled out the poll for today's show, remember we're asking you about the voiceessentials.com.au, the online course. I'm super keen, if you haven't already signed up, like hundreds of people already have, I'm keen to know what's keeping you from doing that. So I want you to hit the white thing that's up there, the white button, and let me know what's keeping you from participating. I'm really keen to know what are the hurdles that maybe we can remove in time to give you better access. I've enjoyed today's live hangout, mostly because I got to hang out with everyone in the live chat. That was a lot of fun. Next week we'll be back, same time, Monday, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I hope you can join us then. Hey, in the meantime, on Wednesday, there's another pre-record video going live. Don't miss that on the channel. But as always, if you only watch the live shows, which some of you do, I look forward to seeing you in a week's time. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.